Welcome everyone to a long-awaited What If. What if Deku was reborn as the Scorpius Rex Part 5? That's right, it's back. Back again. Anyway, where did we last left off? Oh yeah, we last left off after Izuku won the sports festival. He gets down from his podium and goes to check on the other students that he fought against. First was Monoma, and as Monoma is just unconscious in his bed, as she notices the recovery girl, and he says, excuse me, as recovery girl turns around to see Izuku and jumps in fright while saying, "Oh dear Lord, don't sneak up on me," shaking her hand with the walking stick she has. As Izuku says, "Oh, sorry, question," as she says, "What's your question, young man? Or lizard?" As Izuku just rolls his eyes because of that, but he says, "Anyway, is the heat gonna be okay?" Looking at Monoma. And she says, "I'm not sure. I've been trying to recover him, but every now and again his skin turns green. And he's coughing up like crazy." As Izuku notices that Monoma is starting to shake, as Izuku says, "What the?" As Recovery Girl says, "Not again." As she uses her quirk on Monoma, and Monoma is back to normal. And she tells Izuku actually that she's been doing this to the other students that Izuku tail whacked. As Izuku wonders if there's an antidote for this, and he asks, a question. As she says, "Yes. This may sound weird, but I think I know the antidote." As Izuku kinda takes one of his quills off and says, "Maybe it's something similar to a tigerfish." As she knows what a tigerfish, because I don't know her past, neither does anyone, so I'm gonna say when she was younger, she used to be a fisherman or fisherwoman, and caught a tigerfish. Not tigerfish, scorpionfish, not scorpion, scorpionfish, yeah. Sorry, getting my fish mixed up. Anyway, the scorpionfish, as she thinks, "I know the exact antidote, but I'm gonna need a lot of scorpionfish antidotes. Be right back." As Izuku notices Bakugo's bed, and Izuku goes through the curtain, scaring Bakugo a bit, because I like to imagine Izuku's first poking his head through. Now, if you've forgotten, if you don't know what a Scorpius Rex looks like, well, it's a bit complicated, but let me try to find a picture. I'll be right back. This is what Izuku looks like. Just imagine him all green and black. Anyway, Izuku says, "Hi, Kachan, you doing fine?" And before he can say the last sentence, Bakugo yells out, "Oh, don't scare me like that, nerd." And Izuku raises his feathers in shock, like, "Oh, sorry. I've been not looking in the mirror recently. In fact, I think I'm even taller than a mirror." He shakes his head and says, "Anyway, are you okay?" As Bakugo says, "Yeah." You know, ever since you became a dinosaur, basically, you've been quite strong. As Izuku says, "Yeah, actually, yeah." As Izuku is thinking to tell Bakugo about a memory he had after watching a video off of his tracking device. If you don't remember, in one of the episodes, Izuku had a tracking device on his neck, which had a camera. Well, not really a camera. It's like past recordings of Dr. Wu's experiments. And Izuku decides to keep this hidden. But he says, "Kachan," as Bakugo says, "Yeah." "I have a question," as Bakugo says, "Fire away." Izuku says, Why did you bully me back in middle school?" As Bakugo says, "It's all in the past. Come on. I'm your best friend." As Izuku says, "I just want to know, why did you bully me?" Izuku's going up closer to Bakugo, just a few meters away, as Bakugo again says, "Again, let's talk about something else." As Izuku says, "Kachan, tell me why." As Bakugo says, "Ugh, raising your voice at me. I remember the first time you did that." Izuku gets a flashback before he became the Scorpius Rex. That one time he raised his voice at Bakugo because he was upset. And Bakugo, let's just say Izuku had a couple of bruises and cuts after that. Flashback ends and Izuku says, "Kachan?" "No." As Bakugo says, let's just move on to another question. As Izuku grabs Bakugo by the waist and yells to "Katsuki, tell me, why did you bully me?" As the heart monitor is going crazy, because you'd be scared too if a giant dinosaur grabbed on you on the waist and lifted you high in the air. As the recovery girl would hear the commotion and says, "What in the name of all might's going over there?" As she tries to walk over, but she's so slow. I think she's slow at least. Anyway, as Bakugo says, "I'm not telling you." As Izuku says, "Tell me now, or I'll rip the heart monitor out." As Katsuki says, "Never." As Izuku's adding on pressure, and then as he's about to grab the cord, as the recovery girl says, "What in the name of all might's going on here?" As Izuku puts down Bakugo and says, "Sorry, Kachan. I just want to know." As Katsuki says, let's move on to another question. A few months after that incident at Recovery Girl's office, Izuku's been getting uneasy lately. His quills on his arms, head, and tail have been more raised than usual, as if it's a cat showing a... You know how cats do when they're trying to intimidate something? They raise their back and like a slinky? Yeah, it's like that. As one day before, scratch that, as one day, Izuku goes into the canteen area and starts eating his meal. It's his favorite after katsudon, a giant roast cow leg. Well, he is a dinosaur now, and he's going to eat a lot of pounds of meat. As Oraka notices him eating his cow leg, and Oraka says, "Okay, I'm going to sit next to him." As she walks over and sits next to Izuku not noticing because he's too busy eating, going a bit wild on the cow leg as if he's attacking it. As Oraka says, Deku? You okay? As she touches Izuku's leg, Izuku flinching at this and turning at Oraka and says, Oraka, I didn't see you there. As Oraka says, yes, I no one would be looking. As Izuku says, what do you mean? Looking around to see everyone staring at him because it's a dinosaur eating a cow leg, and let's imagine he has blood on his lips now, because let's say it's undercooked a wee bit. As Izuku says, sorry everyone, getting a wee bit embarrassed because of his actions. Now, this is going to be weird, but let's skip to the villains. After the USJ incident, Shigaraki's been having hallucinations of the Scorpius Rex returning to end him. Korgiri and All For One have been trying to restore him, but nothing seems to be working. Doctors, medicine, and heck, he's even got some heroes trying to help him. But unfortunately, it didn't work. As Shigaraki says, I swear, once I get my hands on that boy, I'll turn him into dust. As Korgiri says, easy, master, easy. As Shigaraki's coughing again. As Korgiri says, you need your rest. As he looks to see All For One calling on his phone, asking, is there any doctors nearby? As Korgiri says, master. As All For One says, oh, Korgiri, don't do that. As Korgiri says, I'm afraid there's no cure for this illness that this hero has given Shigaraki. As All For One just breaks the phone with his pure strength and slams his fist on the table and says, no! There's gotta be a way. As somebody walks through the door and says, I might have a way. As all of them turn to see a man in a lab coat with a briefcase and all. And he says, "Good evening. I heard your commotion." As Awful One says, "Who are you? And why the hell are you even in here?" As Korgiri says, "Master, do I have to kill him?" As Doctor says, "I am Dr. Henry Wu, and I'm here to help your child." As Korgiri says, "For one, why do you think that? Second of all, I'm just a guardian for him. And yet, why is he dying? Explain." Grabbing Dr. Henry Wu by the t-shirt and just lifting him in the air. As Awful One says, "Korgiri, no. Let him speak." As Korgiri lets down Dr. Henry Wu and says, "Fine." As Dr. Henry Wu walks over to Awful One and says, "You're the number one villain of Japan." Pretty pathetic. As Awful One was about to snap at Wu, and before he can actually punch Henry Wu, Shigaraki coughs so much that he's actually coughing up blood, and his skin starts to turn even more greener and more purple, actually. As Dr. Henry Wu says, "I might have a way to help your kid, Awful One." As Awful One says, "What do you mean? Do you have an antidote?" As Dr. Henry Wu says, "No, but I may have a way to make it equal for him to get revenge." As Shigaraki lifts his head up and says, "I'm listening." As Dr. Henry Wu opens up his briefcase and uses tranquilizer darts to shoot Awful One and Korgiri, and Shigaraki's left speechless at this and says, "What the? Why?" And before he can say the last sentence, Dr. Henry Wu grabs a knife and stabs Shigaraki in the chest, killing him. And Shigaraki says, not Shigaraki, Henry Wu, yeah. As Henry Wu says, "I'm sorry it had to come to these circumstances, my friend," plucking a hair off of Shigaraki's head. "But I have to make it equal." As he takes this hair sample away with him, we cut to the cafeteria again. As Oraka and Izuku are talking, as they realize they're one of the only students at their table. As Monoma passes by and says, "Hey, yo, lizard." As Izuku says, "Hmm?" And Monoma stamping on his tail where the quills are not. Well, stamping on Izuku's tail, which is upside down now, let's say. Izuku screeches in pain and lifts his tail off the ground and says, "What did you do that for?" As Monoma says, "It's simple. You're the person who stabbed me with your quills. And for the longest time, I felt like I was gonna die. But Izuku says, "But I gave you an antidote." As Monoma says, "Although you may have given me the antidote, I am still..." As he says, "I am still gonna get my revenge. Why am I giving him a Wakandan accent? I do not know. Anyway, as dinner time is finished, Izuku heads to class as Izuku opens up the door, which has another door handle for Izuku, because he a tall boy. As he goes to his seat and wonders why is everyone not in their class today, as he sees Aizawa in his sleeping bag and says, Midoriya, you're here. As he takes a juice box and slurps it up into his gut. Well, he takes a sip at it, actually. Sorry. And says, you are very early. Usually you're not finished with your entire cow leg in under 1 hour. I wonder why you're here. As Izuku says, I'm starting to think no one's giving me respect because the way I look. As Aizawa says, what do you mean? You saved Class 1A from a villain attack. Kinda. As Izuku says, yeah, but ever since I've joined this school, some people have been giving me weird looks. Like, there's this one kid named Monama, and he's always constantly making fun of Class 1A, but he's lately been targeting me. As Aizawa says, oh, don't worry, that's classic Monama. Let's just say he's the class 1B's pest. And this, yeah, as Izuku just says, I have a question, as Aizawa says, question anything. Izuku, let's say Izuku has a backpack, which is pretty big. And he says, how is it like to sleep in a sleeping bag? As Aizawa says, pretty nice. Nice and warm and safe. And you get to sleep anywhere. As Izuku says, can I join? As Aizawa says, what? As Izuku pulls out a gigantic, and I mean gigantic, sleeping bag for his size. But, as he gets into it, and let's say it looks like a snake, as he basically squirms on over there and just sleeps. Well, let's say he sleeps like at his chair in his sleeping bag. As Aizawa says, kids these days. After Izuku woke up about, say, 5 minutes, everyone's there looking at him with such eyes that say, aww. As Izuku says, please don't tell me that you didn't see that. As everyone just pulls out their phones and just shows the pictures of a sleeping Izuku in a snake sleeping bag. As Aizawa says, alright class, alright. Put your phones away, I have an announcement. As everyone gets to their seats. As Aizawa says, alright. Now this may be a bit strange, but we're going on a camping trip. As everyone says, yeah, camping! As Aizawa says, but on one exception. As everyone says, aww. You have to train your quirks. As everyone says, nothing so bad about that. Before they can say that, Izuku says, "What's the catch?" As Aizawa says, "You have to be training with a agency which is so strong. Not even 4 of you can take on one person." As Izuku gulps in fear and zips up his snake sleeping bag, which is weird for this what if, but why not? As they get fully informed about it, it's about a dark forest with nature stuff, which is pretty good. After school is finished, Izuku's exiting his school, and Oraka says, "Izuku!" Oh, sorry. She says, "Deku!" As Izuku turns around to see her running, Oraka, hands open as if in hug motion, and she jumps towards Izuku catching her in the hug, as she says, "Is that okay?" And before she can finish the sentence, as Izuku says, "All aboard the Dinosaur Express." As Oraka is just thrown on Izuku's back and basically holds on for dear life, expecting Izuku to run. Instead, Izuku walks. As Oraka says, "Strangely, you're actually quite fast." As Izuku says, "I notice you constantly screaming after school because you want to have a quick ride. And the last time, everyone thought that I was a villain kidnapping you." As Oraka thinks, "Oh, snap." As As during the walk, they pass by an alleyway which they can hear a little girl scream. As Izuku lifts his head up and sniffs the air, and he says, "Oraka, get behind me." As Oraka says, "I'll get in the bag," opening the zip to the bag and just crawls in. As this little girl running away from a shadowy figure in the distance. As she bumps into Izuku's leg, and she says, "Please don't hurt me." And Izuku says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, you got nothing to fear," picking up the little girl in one hand. As this little girl looks like she's been scarred for most of her life, about 5. As Izuku says, "Are you okay?" As he hears a voice say, "Eri, come back." As Izuku just looks over to see a brown-haired man with a bird mask. As Izuku says, "Wait a minute. Is this your kid?" As this little girl, now confirmed as Eri, yeah, that's right, a wee bit early, but why not? As Eri says, "Don't trust him," just hugging Izuku at the face, and Izuku's muffling, saying, "Not the face." As this man says, "Come on, Eri, let's go home." As Izuku looks over to see a wanted poster of this man named Overhaul. As Izuku says, "Excuse me," grabbing Eri and putting her on his back, and says, "Now, why does it say it has a wanted poster of you on the wall? As he looks over to see, as Overhaul looks over to see his poster and says, shoot. As Overhaul is just yells over to Eerie and says, Eerie, come over, now! As Eerie starts to climb down and Izuku says, nuh-uh. As he basically looks over to Eerie and says, get in the bag. As Eerie can tell by the voice, it basically means get in the bag for safety. As Overhaul says, what do you think of doing, you overgrown lizard? As Izuku says, something I don't really want to do. As Overhaul notices Izuku's true height, and Overhaul says, what are you doing? As Izuku says, nothing much, Plague Doctor, opening his jaws and snapping at Overhaul. Yep, that's right. Overhaul's already dead. Sorry. But I don't like the character. So if he's in one of my videos, he's gonna end up dying in the same episode. Anyway. As Izuku's basically finished, consuming Overhaul. As we cut to Uraraka's perspective. This bag is pretty big. And she noticed Eerie in the corner and says, hey, are you okay? This is where I have to stop. Sorry, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for more. Hit the bell notification to be notified for more videos. Anyway, bye-bye.